It's amazing that after a couple of midseason firings in the NFL in Miami and Tennessee, we're almost seeing a second round of the coaching and front office carousel gearing up. I'm Brian Clark at CineSport, taking a look at it with Paul Newberry of the AP. And Paul, will start in Atlanta. Thomas Dimitroff stuck around after a regime change, but after 6 consecutive losses, how much trouble could he be in as the Falcons GM?
Well, I think he's in big trouble. I think the general consensus around Atlanta is that he's down to about his last 3 weeks as the general manager of the Falcons. A stunning fall from a guy who, when he came to Atlanta back in 2008, was sort of quickly viewed as one of the rising stars among NFL executives. A lot of very poor drafts, some very questionable free agent signings, and it's kind of just left a roster that just doesn't have a lot of talent on it. And with a first-year coach, I don't think they're going to get rid of him. So I would say Dimitroff is the guy who's probably going to take the fall in Atlanta.
And speaking of first-year coaches, that's what Jim Tomsula is in San Francisco. Obviously a different situation. He was there under Jim Harbaugh. Not as much talent now on the roster. But could you see the Niners brass giving Tomsula a second year, or could he still be in some trouble?
I think that's a pretty... They could probably go either way. I mean, the 49ers look pretty bad if they dump a guy after only 1 year. The roster was sort of going downhill, their quarterback situation there. But I think he was such a kind of a questionable hire when they first brought him in to replace Jim Harbaugh, viewed as such a downgrade from what they had before, that I think it's highly possible that San Francisco goes ahead and says, let's cut our losses and try to move on to somebody else.
And then finally in New York, the Giants are 6-7, but in the NFC East, that means that's good for a tie for first place. However, if the Giants miss the playoffs in this bad division, does that mean that either Jerry Reese or Tom Coughlin gets fired, both get fired, or they both ride it out again?
Well, it's hard to imagine that they can keep riding it out all. I guess, you've won Super Bowl titles. If they don't win that division, and it's obviously a very weak division, I believe that's 4 straight years without going to the playoffs, perhaps 3 straight losing seasons. So given kind of the sort of downturn of the franchise since winning the Super Bowl during the 2011 season, I'd say obviously both of those guys fall into the category of highly questionable whether they'll be around in 2016.
And one topic certainly to watch over the next couple of weeks for fans whose teams are out of the playoffs. Paul Newberry of the AP. Thanks, Paul.